Hi everyone, I'm going to walk you through an example of how to treatment plan using Ortho Calculator. So this is my case right here. I just kind of turned it into a cartoon for privacy reasons. Here are all the relevant measurements that we'll need to treatment plan this case. So you can open up orthocalculator.org. Let me pull that up here. Okay, so first going to jump to the first calculator that you should use when you're treatment planning a case, the expansion calculator. This patient right here doesn't have any crossbites or any constriction. It's more of a matter of developing this patient's arch. So the first measurement is the center of the mandibular trough. That measurement is in orange right here, 41 millimeters. So let me set that to 41. The next measurement we're going to do is the mesiopalatal cusp of the upper first molars, which is 38 right here. And then in the lower arch, the central groove of the molars is also 38. So like I said, we don't need any actual expansion with an appliance, but our arch wires will give us some expansion. And we're expecting to get about 2 millimeters of space gain in the upper from expansion and 1.5 millimeters in the lower from expansion. So we'll keep those numbers in mind, 2 and 1.5. Next thing we want to do is open up the mandibular space calculator, since the mandible is the diagnostic arch. So crowding, these are just estimates for the purpose of this example, but I'm going to say 3 millimeters here. So punch in 3 millimeters of crowding. We'll say the patient has maybe 2 millimeter curve of SPE, no space needed for buildups, implants, retraction of the incisal edge. So we want the lower incisor to finish on the NA line, which is drawn here in pink. They're currently 2 millimeters ahead. The uppers are 5 millimeters ahead, so there's 3 millimeters overjet. So lower incisors, we want to come back 2 millimeters. And space creation. So for now, I'm going to just add the space we expect from buccal segment uprighting, which we got from the previous calculator. I said it was 1.5. No teeth are going to be derotated here to really gain space. And there won't be any distalization or IPR at this point. And I'm not going to worry about extractions yet. So the crowding here is about 7.32 millimeters. So somehow we have to create space to resolve that. Whether it's distalization, which doesn't really make sense in a Class II case, IPR, that would be pretty aggressive. So we're already thinking maybe extractions might have a role to play in this case. Let's go back now for the upper arch. So same idea for the upper arch. We have 4 millimeters of crowding. No spacing, no leeway space. We want the upper incisors to come back to give us about 2 millimeters of overjet. So if the lowers are going back 2, we want the uppers to go back about 3. That's going to require 6 millimeters of space. We said expansion would give us 2 millimeters of space, I believe, the arch wire expansion. We'll just say no derotations in this case. So let's just look down here. We're short 8.6 millimeters. That's quite a bit of space. We could try distalization. That's possible. We'd need about 4 on both sides. Although this isn't a symmetric case, so wouldn't quite work out like that. Anyway, we're short here again, making us think maybe extractions would help facilitate finishing this case. So both arches are about 7 or 8 millimeters short. Premolars are about 7.5 millimeters, so taking teeth out might be advantageous here. Let's jump ahead to the extraction calculator and see what extraction patterns might help us in this case. So on the right side, our cats is +4. If I type in +4 here, calculator is recommending a class 2 extraction pattern, which an upper 4 extraction closed with moderate anchorage would give us just about 0, or a perfect occlusion on that side. On the other side, the malocclusion is 0 right now. So if we set this to 0, calculator is telling us to look in the class 1 extraction patterns. Upper 4, lower 5 would be recommended to maintain the current cats on that side. So the calculator is recommending an upper 4 on the right and a 4/5 extraction on the left. This kind of works out really nicely for this case because we're class 2 on the right. If we take out an upper 4, close with moderate anchorage, we'll finish full cusp class 2 here. The canine will come back into class 1. So that would work out nicely. And then on this side, if we take out upper 4, lower 5, close with moderate anchorage, the malocclusion here, the buccal occlusion should stay the same, but we'll have an asymmetric extraction in the lower. The 5 might come out and nothing over here. But what that would actually allow is for this lower midline to slide over to the right, giving us coincident midlines. So because this is a class 2 subdivision case, an asymmetric extraction pattern actually works out really nicely here. So let's keep that in mind, an upper 4 and then upper 4, lower 5 extraction on the right and left respectively. I'm going to go back to the lower space calculator now. So let's punch in all those numbers again. We said crowding is 3 millimeters. I think we said curve of speed about 2. We want to retract the lower incisors 2 millimeters. We said we'd gain about 1.5 millimeters from buccal segment uprighting. Not distalizing, trying not to do any IPR here. And we said we might do 1 premolar extraction in the lower. And if I estimate that the lower 5, the 3/5, is about 7.5 millimeters wide, that actually works out perfectly. So we were short 4 millimeters, 4 millimeters, so 8 millimeters. And then we created about 8 millimeters of space. So now our crowding and spacing in the lower is pretty much even right on. We don't need to do anything special to create more space, and we're not going to end up with excess space. My residual space is 0.18, so we'll call that 0. So as long as we just close that lower extraction space by moderate anchorage, everything should work out nicely in the lower. Let's go to the upper now, where we said we were considering 2 upper 4s coming out. Punch in these numbers again. 4 millimeters of crowding, no spacing. We wanted to retract 3 millimeters to get those upper incisors and a nice spot in the face. We said the expansion would give us about 2 millimeters in the upper. We're not distalizing in this case because we want to close the extraction spaces, so we'll leave that alone, no IPR, and we're extracting about 15 millimeters of tooth material. We've created 16 millimeters of space. We had about 6.5 millimeters of of crowding. Sorry, my fault. We had 10 millimeters of crowding. We created 16 millimeters of space. We have about 6.5 left over. So we need to burn anchorage in the upper to bring the residual space down to 0. So let's say we do 3 and 3. Pretty close. So our anchorage requirements are moderate in the upper. So that works out really nicely. We can treat this case, which is a subdivision case, with 3 premolar extractions. We can fix that lower arch asymmetry by extracting asymmetrically. We can bring the incisors to a nice position in the face. And we're not going to really rely on patient compliance for elastic wear because we're closing space through moderate anchorage. So here's one example of how you can use Ortho Calculator to treatment plan a case just by putting in all the right measurements, going back and forth a little bit between the expansion calculator, the space calculator, and the extraction calculator, playing around until things all match up and make sense. And hopefully that leads to a nice result. All right, thanks for watching.